So we're into 2021 and I wanted to get back to the Amazon Renewed series, and I thought of a really cool idea. I'll go to Amazon and buy the cheapest iPhone I can. I actually didn't buy it with the intention of getting an Amazon Renewed phone, but that's what happened. If you haven't watched any of my Amazon Renewed videos, I'll talk a little bit about them later. But it worked. I went and got the cheapest iPhone, and it's not the one I thought it would be. As a matter of fact, this video's gone sideways, I'm not gonna lie. I actually expected it to be like an iPhone 5 or 6 or something like that. I wanted to do something different. Turned out to be the iPhone 7, the one I've actually already done a video review on. This is very awkward. But we're going to do it anyway. I'm going to tell you about the iPhone 7 in 2021 right after this.
This is, you listening to Travis.
What up, players? Welcome back. And for all you new people, welcome. My name is Travis and I do tech videos every single week and have a blast doing them. If that sounds like fun to you, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Anything I talk about will be in the description below, but for now, let's just get into the video. Let's just get into it. I actually did a full review of the iPhone 7 from Amazon Renewed actually really early on, like one of the very first Amazon Renewed videos. I'll leave a link for that in the description and in the end screen. I actually took some time and talked about the history of this phone and what made it so interesting and why it was kind of a lot of courage went into this phone. And again, I don't really want to go over all the things about it on Amazon Renewed, but for those of you who've never watched my Amazon Renewed series, let me real quick tell you what it is. It's a program by which third-party sellers on Amazon can resell products as renewed and give you an extended return policy. That is up to 90 days. And the product has to look pretty much brand new, which all of mine have, and work really well. There's also a stipulation there about having a battery life, the capacity of up to 80%. So that means you get a really good deal and up to 90 days to return it in case you don't like it, which is one of the biggest selling points. Having said that, since the last time I've done one of these, Amazon has come out with something new, this new kind of premium tier of Amazon Renewed. It does cost more money, but get this, Amazon directly is now selling these and you get a year return. That's crazy. Now, sometimes it costs up to $60, $70 more than the less expensive Renew, but if you really intend on keeping these for a long time, having a year to return a smartphone is pretty nuts. So not every single listing has that available, but Amazon is kind of expanding that, I've noticed over the last couple of months. Maybe I'll pick one of those up too, but really what you should see is pretty much the same thing because there is a standard. Now the standard for the iPhone 7 or anything else under that, like I said before, is an 80% capacity of the battery. And the last time I did this, my iPhone 7 didn't have that. And neither does this one. Now you can return these for pretty much any reason, but one of the things all of these phones are supposed to have is at least an 80% capacity. Now what that means is, it doesn't mean when you charge it up, it's only gonna say 80%. What it means is, let's say for example, this had a 1000 milliamp hour battery, that it has to have at least 800 milliamp hours left. And then when you charge it up, it's still gonna say 100, but really it's 100 of 800. It's math. It's math. And when I did the iPhone 7, that was not the case. And it's not the case here again. This is 77%. I mean, it's close, but it's not exactly there. There's a couple of things to consider with that. Number one, obviously you're not gonna get a lot of battery life. Like 100% of 77% is all day mostly, for the most part, especially if you're just at home or something like that. So this would be something I would immediately return because I need to get at least 80%. That's what the guarantee is, so it goes back. But I'm starting to wonder if there are any iPhone 7s on Amazon Renewed that are gonna hit 80%. It's just an old phone. I just think that anything beyond that, anything newer, like the 8 or above, you'll have success with, which I have had. But the 7, this is 2 for 2, under 80%. And the funny thing about this is, when I bought this last year, I got it for about $150. I paid $180 for this. How did it go up? How can this go up in price? That makes no sense. More phones have come out since the last time I had this thing, and it went up in price. This is nuts. Let's talk a little bit about the iPhone 7. First of all, it was the first phone without a headphone jack from Apple, which of course then spawned other companies to go ahead and do no headphone jacks. It's also one of the first phones that took away the physical button. Now there is a button here, but it's haptic. It's not a real button. It has Touch ID, but it's not an actual button. You just press it and you feel like a slight vibration. It wasn't very much longer after that they pretty much took it away. They did the iPhone 8, and then after that, it was done. It has the A10 processor, which at this point is kind of old. Doesn't have any of the neural engine stuff that the newer processors have. I did notice in using it that there did seem to be like a half of a lag, like just a little bit, not a lot. But as you can kind of see here, I'd press something and then it would happen slightly after. And here's the thing, an A10 is a super powerful processor. There's nothing wrong with it. But when you've used like any of the more recent iPhones, it's just snappy, and this just is not that snappy. it's acceptable, of course, and considering you can still get iOS 14 on here and, probably iOS 15, it's still a phone that you can use all the newer features. Well, at least some of the newer features are available, but some are not supported by the hardware. One of those being night mode. Of course, this thing didn't have a night mode shooting option, and you might think you might not need that, but here's an example. I'm in my living room with a kind of darkened area, not very much light. This is what it looks like on the iPhone 7. And even though it's not fair direct comparison, there are other phones that can do this. The iPhone 12 Pro Max, as you can see here, it looks like it's pretty much, I did not change any of the lighting. This is just the difference. And phones like the iPhone 11 and such have that. So even though, it's a couple $100 difference, if you're taking pictures in lower light, while you can use the flash, I just get a newer one. Now the overall camera quality is fine. Even the video quality is fine. I mean, as you can see here, there's nothing wrong with it. And as a matter of fact, it kind of stands up, at least in some of the photos. But the thing is, there's so much better processing power in the current generation of iPhones that the pictures actually will look better on the newer phones, even if the lens isn't that much different. And yes, they have actually made improvements on the lens as well. So I don't know, you probably like your pictures on an iPhone 7, but you would probably love your pictures on a lot of other phones. And this doesn't even talk about the fact that there's no portrait mode on this thing. If you get portrait mode going, you can have all types of fun with newer iPhones, and there's just no option for that on this. There's only one camera on the back, which does not give you a lot of options. You don't get like an ultra wide and a telephoto and all that stuff. You don't get any of that. You just get the one camera. So again, if you can get to a more current generation phone, the upgrade is really significant. And if it's me and you're on a budget, you have two options. Really, in my opinion, you have two options. Number one, you just go with the iPhone 8 and get a couple of the upgrades, or, and if it's me and it's not an emergency, you wait a little bit longer, save a little bit more money, and just get a better phone. This only has 32 gigs of storage too, that's another thing. But let me just talk about this. I think when I first talked about this last year, other than the battery issue with it being under 80%, I said you should buy this, but I don't agree with that anymore. Not because it's not a good phone, it's a decent phone, but because the iPhone 8 isn't much more expensive and it's quite a bit better. Right now on Amazon Renewed for about $30 to $50-ish, you can get an iPhone 8. It's still in the Renewed. Like, there's no reason not to. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of reasons you should. Like I said, this comes with 32 gigs of storage. The iPhone 8 comes with 64. The camera quality on this is fine. You can shoot video up to 4K 30, and on the iPhone 8 you can do up to 4K 60. And don't forget, the processor in the iPhone 8 is the same as the one in iPhone 10. The iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10 were released in the same year, just a different form factor. I know a lot of people don't remember that, but that's what it is. The iPhone 8 obviously has the neural engine for machine learning and a bunch of other cool things that can be used for things like emojis and that sort of thing. I mean, it's just a more powerful processor that'll be supported a little bit longer, and it's much snappier in the operating system, even on iOS 14. And maybe one of those reasons is the iPhone 8 can actually use all of its processing cores at the same time. That's one of the limits of the older iPhone 7, that it couldn't use all of the cores at one time. But the iPhone 8 was the first that was allowed to do that. So maybe that's why there's a little bit more snappy kind of feel to all of these phones after the 7. Again, nothing wrong with this phone particularly, especially if you still have this, but I will say this, if you actually have an iPhone 7 and you're thinking about upgrading, you're gonna see a difference. I guess ultimately I'm just saying that this isn't really that great of a deal anymore. I would just absolutely tell you to not buy this phone. Like, there's no reason to do it. The iPhone 8 is just too close in price. And if you just want to spend a little bit more and you're into Android, there's tons of options in the $200 and $250 range on the Android side that are just amazing, like really just a lot. I have some of those videos here on my channel. But if you want to stay on iOS, I would just go with the 8 at the very least. But if you are already on the 7 and you're willing to get away from the touch button, there's so many options now. There's the Mini, if you like to keep the size around this size. There's the SE. I'm not even sure if I would say to go with that just because of the battery, but there's so many different options. So worst case scenario, you go to the iPhone SE, you get an A13, you get night mode, you get all the cool things. Best case scenario, you go with something like a 12 or even an 11. Heck, 10R, I mean, anything. Just don't buy this. And I'll have more Amazon Renewed videos, but of course I've done this before, so if you haven't seen these videos and you're interested, why don't you check out some of these, maybe even some of these. Thanks so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time. Peace and love.